Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. I hope you guys, number one, have had a nice, long, extended holiday weekend here as it's coming too quickly to an end. And number two, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving, had some time to spend with your families, and to really focus on some of the true qualities in life and the things that are really important, and really taking some time to de-stress from the market and to focus on some other things, even though we'll be talking about the market because, hey, guess what? Futures are opening up tomorrow night. And just personally, very thankful for everybody that has subscribed to the channel. We're getting close to 30,000 subscribers, and I love interacting with you guys on a daily basis and creating content. It keeps me very interested and involved in the market. So thank you guys very much. As we talk about what we've seen with a short-in trading week over the Thanksgiving week, in terms of volume, obviously that's been kind of decreased, but how the month ended, what we could see in terms of December, and a lot of bullishness that's coming in. So the big question is, is a bottom priced in, and are we going to see a lot of buying pressure in December towards the end of the year, as everybody's been expecting this end of the year rally that has still been yet to come. Actually, we've seen a decent bit of a sell-off in a lot of the individual names, but we've seen a little bit of breathing this week. So we'll be talking about that. If you're new or returning viewer, hit the like button, subscribe for daily videos, pop it up on the screen here. Let's talk about Palantir first, because Palantir has had a very, very good reversal from when it hit this bottom here. Basically, it says 147, but we'll call this 150. There's a nice consolidation, strong base here, Palantir, between the 170s and the 184. We've been talking about that in terms of a technical perspective. What you saw was a lot of selling pressure. The bears did have some control for a while, which brought back here, Palantir to test this area where it's also had some consolidation and some foundation between 150 and the 160s. And you can see that reversal, that support was tested and held up quite nicely right at about that 150. And you see a nice bounce here. In terms of what we've seen with a strong sell-off, that of course can be met with a V-shaped rally. We'll see if that does give us an opportunity come December here. But what you see is Palantir is kind of re-entering and hopefully going to be reclaiming some support here at the 170s with the overnight hours that open up tomorrow. We'll be making a video and giving you guys an up-to-date on that. But in terms of this price action at 168 right here, and in terms of the after hours, you see 169 up about another $3. So we saw a lot of buying pressure into the close on Friday's short-in trading session. So all the bullishness and a lot of momentum in a short-in trading week in terms of the amount of hours that people had to trade, and in terms of how people typically are starting to take longer, vacations and taking more days off around the holidays. And we still saw a decent amount of bullishness coming through. So that's what I do like in terms of optimism coming into the market for December. Also, we have on here is Scotty B teasing a pre-Christmas shocker, a possible announcement from the administration, saying here that there's going to be a very good chance that the president will make an announcement before Christmas. Now, if you kind of couple this with rate cuts that the probabilities are really starting to increase, we're leaning towards an actual 25 basis point cut for December. You see this kind of economic shift or a policy pivot. The risk-on environment is starting to be more attractive towards the end of the year, and we're seeing that in some of the individual names that we'll be talking about here, and especially with the cryptocurrency market. So you have the NASDAQ that closes higher. In terms of ending here in November, the S&P 500 too also closed at a very nice number. We'll talk about the index in just a moment here. But in terms of the risk-on sentiment and what the market is doing in terms of the volatility that we saw in November, the market is now pricing in about an 80 to 85% chance that we're going to see a rate cut in just a couple of short weeks. This is very bullish and a big reversal because it was originally like 90%. It came down to like 30% after we saw some kind of uncertainties that possibly inflation was more of the worry versus the actual weakening labor market. But in terms of the macroeconomic data, things have been looking decent here, and we're seeing a rate cut, the expectations that are starting to increase. So in terms of Friday, the last trading day, the S&P 500, it closed right here at 68.49. So the indexes are doing quite well. And I do like to see this close above 6,800, especially during a shortened trading week. As we end November here, was quite an insane month. I will tell you that. Everybody was expecting November to be quite bullish in terms of seasonality and what we've seen with historical types of bull markets. But at this close at about 68.50, I really like this close. And I think a possible testing and a push to 7,000 in terms of a resistance point, a psychological resistance point too, with this kind of risk on environment that we're entering. I think that's incredibly, that's my short-term prediction. I think it can happen. In terms of the crypto markets here, you even have Trump coming out saying, from this day forward, America is going to follow every rule that Bitcoiner knows, never sell your Bitcoin, talking about HODL here. In terms of Bitcoin, it's hanging out here about at the 90,000 zone. You saw Bitcoin that got a decent bit of confidence last week, and you see Bitcoin that even gets up here to about 92,000 with a tiny little bit of a sell-off, kind of holding this 90,000 area, and how that correlates over here to Ethereum literally holding this 3,000 area. I do like that the 3,000 was recaptured in terms of the support level, and since November 26 here, so about 3 days, it's basically been holding this floor at 3,000. I think that's also incredibly important, especially as we've recently been talking on the channel a lot BMNR, because on a technical perspective, BMNR also saw a ton of buying pressure into its close. You see here, this was at 32, all the way up here at 33, basically at 34, almost in here in the after hours. BMNR has recaptured a very important support level, and that support level is at around that $30 area. Because what you can see here is after BMNR, you had Tom Lee, of course, and announced his involvement with BMNR. You had a squeeze up here, then with, of course, it sell off because that was unsustainable. BMNR had a little bit of consolidation here and had a reversal at about that 30 before we saw a lot of swinging kind of between the 40s and the 60s. In terms of you could say frothiness that came out of the market, you had the huge, liquidation event October 10th in crypto, the largest liquidation event in its history. BMNR came down here to about 24, broke down with about basically a 50% sell off. And people were asking, where's that bottom? Where's that reversal? And of course, this, it definitely is not the reversal for sure. Of course, we don't know exactly everything with 100% confidence, but we are seeing signs of a reversal, especially just kind of the whole psychology that I'm seeing across kind of the whole financial tech sector. Of course, that's not a reliable gauge, but I use it to try to judge my gut feeling. So in terms of a 24 reversal right here, BMNR recapturing that $30 level of support, I think that's incredibly important. And of course, Ethereum has to do a good job helping BMNR. One big thing that I do like to point out, BMNR, in terms of where it's at right here at 33 and compared to where it was at $30 back in August, is the amount of Ethereum that BMNR now holds in that, and the fact that BitMine here has now added 14,000 Ethereum. That's worth about $44 million to its treasury. So all in all, this digital asset treasury right here, they hold about $3.6 million of Ethereum, which is about 3% of the ETH circulation. And as we know, Tom Lee with BitMine wants 5% of the ETH supply, the power in numbers. So as BMNR will sit here as Ethereum consolidates at these price targets and price zones, in terms of the actual native asset value, it's still kind of continuing to increase underneath the radar. And on top of that, and speaking of underneath the radar, you see lots of institutional ownership that is also increasing at a rapid rate. So I do like this move right here. And along with the other likes that I, right now, the things that I fancy are the AI data center trade that's looking at IREN, Cypher, CoreWeave, Nebius. Now you can do your own research, pick out which one you like in terms of the AI trade in general. But right now, what I'm liking about Cypher is making some strong moves off this bottom right here for this last reversal at about $14. You can see Cypher right here now at $20.35. In terms of the market cap, it's only an $8 billion market cap. And, my prediction for the next few years for all these AI data center names is, the bottleneck for AI compute power is energy. And these AI data centers are working on the whole AI cloud solution for compute and also working on energy too in terms of megawatts. So these data centers are continuing to be built out. I think we're going to continue to see deals across the board. And I think the market is going to be repricing these stocks as analysts will start to jump on, kind of taking this more serious, basically as these whole fantasies kind of become reality. We'll see what happens. in terms of the AI data center trade. But right now, in terms of the end of the year, short term and long term, I'm kind of back to that bullish perspective. So, of course, we have a little bit of uncertainty here. You have, of course, with a lot of buying pressure coming into the market again, re-emerging, a lot of those, top callers that are saying, hey, is this the fake out? We just experienced a lot of pain. No, I'm just not really on that whole psychological type of trend. I think since we experienced a lot of pain and frothiness, and the S&P even took a beating, S&P came down to about like 65.50. Since we experienced all that beating and now we got a lot of the frothiness out of the market, I think it was kind of a decent reset moment. And fundamentally within the market, not a ton has changed. The AI demand is still crazy, and we just cut out a ton of frothiness. So I'm bullish going towards the end of the year. We'll see what happens. Peace. I'll take care. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys all had a wonderful Thanksgiving.